Hey, look, somebody asked me a question. I better answer it. Hello, it's Aaron from AaronOnAutos.com, and today I'm going to answer a question from Edward. Edward wants to know, why hasn't there been a lot of advertising for the new Ford Ranger? So the Ford Ranger just came out. I've done full reviews of this. I had it for about a week. I drove it, did interior and exterior reviews. You'll see links for those below. The Ranger has not had heavy public advertising in the terms of there hasn't been a lot of like television or billboards, stuff like that, outside of dealerships trying to advertise it. And there's kind of a reason for that. The biggest reason is Ford is targeting the marketing for this truck. So the Ranger is not necessarily new. The name is old. The Ranger has been was a small truck in the U.S. for a long time, but it's also been being sold and in development overseas, even after it canceled here. So even for the 10 years that it wasn't here in the U.S., it was still being sold overseas and made for those markets. And the Ranger that we have now is essentially that Ranger, outside of Ford changed the engine. So the advertising for the Ranger has been very targeted. They've been aiming at very specific demographics with the truck. They're not trying to sell it to everybody who is in the market to buy a car. That sort of advertising really doesn't work anymore anyway. You can blanket advertise a volume car, so a high volume vehicle like Nissan Rogue, Toyota Camry, those kind of vehicles. But you can't do that as well with a more niche market car. And the Ranger is a niche market vehicle. What Ford has been aiming for with the Ranger has been a adventuring demographic that wants a regular everyday vehicle outside of that, rock climbing, dreamy world that everybody thinks they live in Colorado for. So the marketing has been towards, well, I'll just show you. Here's one of Ford's press releases talking about their marketing for the Ranger. And this came out in March. And this is talking about adventure-oriented audiences. And that's really what Ford is aiming for here, because that's who buys small trucks. Coffee. People like to believe that the main buyer for small trucks is, Joe the lawn guy or Mary the parts distributor or something like that. But that's not it. The mainstream buyer for small trucks are people that want to get out and do stuff. They need the utility of a small pickup truck, but they also need to be able to daily drive that vehicle. And a big truck, a full-size truck, may not fit that. And they're hoping for fuel economy. That doesn't usually happen in mid-sized trucks, but they're hoping for that. And so Ford is targeting that particular market, that particular group of people, the people that are going to go out and maybe go riding their mountain bikes, like in the photo for this, or they're going to go, snowboarding. They're maybe into kayaking, any of that stuff, rock climbing or nut job stuff like running up the side of mountains, that kind of stuff. I know some of those people and they're all crazy. So, but anyway, that's what Ford is targeting mostly with this pickup truck. And that's where the sales will be for it. Same thing will happen with Jeep. The Jeep Gladiator is not being mass marketed. It's not being marketed to everybody on the planet. It's being marketed to very specific Jeep owners and Jeep styles, right? So people that would own a Jeep. And that in a way is similar to what Ford is aiming for. Ford is aiming for the market that goes adventuring, but they don't necessarily need the vehicle to be the adventure. They just need it to be what gets them to it. So there you go. That's what's happening with Ford marketing. And I think it's a good target. It's a good aim for Ford. And also right now, we have to admit, the Ranger is limited. It's only got one engine option. It really doesn't have a serious off-road package. There's no performance option. None of that is available yet. Now, Ford won't admit it. They tell me they can't talk about future products, right? Which is a standard fair answer from PR people. But it's very clear there are plans for this truck. The Ranger is going to become, it's going to have a lot of options. It's just going to be another year, 2 years, 3 years before that happens. They'll roll them out. So I very much suspect next year there will be a serious off-road version of the Ranger. I also suspect that there will be at least one more engine option, maybe two. I could see a larger turbo 4 in there, so I could see them putting like the 2.7 or even the 3.0, excuse me, that they have. I could also see them throwing in the diesel. A small diesel engine would be perfect for this truck. So those are the things. Electrification, I haven't even talked about that. That's possible too. But there you go. The Ford Ranger, that's the reason, Edward, that the advertising hasn't been as mass market. They've been aiming for a very specific niche of buyer, and I think they're hitting that niche with their advertising. And that seems to be outside of the Ford Ranger enthusiasts, so all the people who just have to own a Ford Ranger because it says Ford Ranger on it. Outside of them, which is a small group, outside of that group, you have adventure types. Whether they're actual adventure types or wannabes, that's who they're marketing towards, and that's who's buying this truck. So there you go. Aaron on autos.com. If you have questions and you need an answer, and there's no one else to help, you can find me below. Leave a comment. You can hit me up on aarononautos.com. You can find me on Quora, Facebook, Twitter, all that. So hit me up and make sure you subscribe. Subscribe. Yeah. Talk to you again soon.